And welcome to Spit to the Beat podcast. I'm your host, Stacy Beat Unstoppable Prayer, and we are in the studio doing a virtual recording with my very special guest joining me today on this Father's Day weekend, comedian A-Train. But before I bring him on, you know how do I kick that intro?
Attention. Spit to the Beat. It's all about the music industry.
Nobody do it better.
Hit that notification bell. I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much to all my listeners as well as my sponsors. Again, we are back in the virtual studio. I'm your host, Stacy Beat Unstoppable Prayer on Spit to the Beat podcast. Today, I got a very special guest joining me from Atlanta, Georgia. Comedian, my friend, the guy I got to know on the Maxwell Urban Hangout Suite cruise early this year. So I was super excited to get back in touch with him and to get him on the podcast. Thank you so much for his wife, also for making this happen as well. So without further ado, I'm bringing you on my guest, comedian A-Train. Hey.
What's going on, my brother?
Not much, man. Happy to see you, man. How you doing?
I'm good, man. I just want to make one correction.
Okay,
so that the listening audience will understand. I am from Duval, Jacksonville, Florida. I just so happen to be in Atlanta right now because I got a flight out early in the morning to Alaska to get on that ship. But I am from Duval. Yes.
Well, definitely thank you for making that clear. He's from Duval, Jackson.
Yes, sir. Born and raised. Yes, sir. Yes.
So are you residing in Atlanta or you what?
Yeah, I just be on the run, man. You know, with traveling and you know, as a comic, man, you on the road every week. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I had a show. I had to host Allstel's Juneteenth celebration. So did that on yesterday evening, and like I say, I'm flying out in the morning. But yeah, man, Jacksonville, Florida is always home, man.
Awesome. Look, let's talk a little bit about your career and everything. How did it all get started? Also, I personally want to know, how did you come by the name A-Train?
Well, first of all, I got started, man, doing comedy. Believe it or not, my wife, you know, she's been telling me about I need to be doing comedy, man, for years, and I just ignored it. Like, I'm not doing that. You know what I mean? Like, she told me when we met 26 years ago, you know, wow. We had just met, hanging out for a few months, and she was like, "You ever thought about doing stand-up?" She's like, "You need to be doing stand-up comedy." I was like, "I'm not doing no stand-up comedy," you know, and pushed it off, brother, for about 11 years, you know, and then I started, you know, like hosting events and things like that. and rocking the rooms, and she just got tired of me ignoring her. So what she did was she signed me up into a comedy competition that was here in the city, and she made me do it. Like I didn't even know she had initiated, until afterwards. And she's talking like, yeah, we got. They're like, what, and and so sure enough, man. Long story short, I participated, and I won, and the rest was literally history, man. Like it was nonstop ever since. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Was that a surprise to you winning that?
It was a surprise because you got to keep in mind, I didn't want to do it.
Right.
I'm only doing this to shut her up and to have her leave me alone and don't ever bother me about this ever again. And truth of the matter, I was on stage. And while I was on stage, doing my little set, the whole time I'm thinking in my head, like, this is so dumb. Like, this is so stupid, man. Like, and I'm saying this in my head. And people in the crowd, they laughing at the stuff I'm saying and doing. But at the same time, I'm in my head and I literally said, this ain't funny. Like, why are they laughing? You know what I mean? And I did that like the whole set, brother. And did my last little joke, and people were standing on their feet clapping, and I'm exiting the stage and I'm just looking down at the floor and I'm trying to get out of there, not even realizing I just got a standing ovation, and I went off in the back, and the other comedians, they went up and they had, because I was in this competition with cats who were like bona fide comics who had been doing this for a while. Comedians who had went to comedy classes at the local comedy club. I didn't even know you could take a class for comedy, and here I am straight off the street, just doing this to shut my wife up and to have her leave me alone. And man, I ended up winning the competition by the crowd participation and a panel of judges that was at that showcase. And so the prize for that competition was you got like a little monetary award, and then 2 weeks later you had to open up for this comedy show that they were throwing, right? And it was at the Times Union Theater, which is in downtown Jacksonville, which is like one of the big theaters in town. And it was a sold out show, bro. And so here I am, because I won the competition, I gotta be the first one to go out to do my 7 minutes. And man, I was on that stage at that theater, man, and I'm doing my jokes again. And brother, somewhere in the middle of that set, something just kicked in. I'm like, man, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, okay, okay. And at the end of my set, I got a standing ovation, right? Again. And I'm standing on stage and I'm looking at all these people in that theater, man. And I was like, yeah, I like this. So at that moment, I was hooked. But not when I first did it 2 weeks prior at the competition. But, at that big show, oh, man, I was hooked, brother. And from there, man, I was getting booked and getting booked and getting booked. And about 2 years later, you know what I'm saying, I was doing some dates with D.L. Hughley, man.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you finally accepted that calling, huh?
Say that again?
I said you finally accepted that calling.
Yeah, man. Yeah. When I think about it now, it's like I wouldn't want to be doing anything else, man. And I'm gonna tell you what did it for me.
Okay.
You know how like when you work in, your job, your 9 to 5, and you've done your thing throughout that day, and you're laying down that night, and right before you fall off to sleep, your brain is just mapping. It's like I got to do this, I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, and you're just trying to make these moves. You know what I'm saying, and plan this thing. Plan your life out, and I call it background noise, But when I started doing comedy, brother, all of that background noise ceased. And when that happened, for me, it was a sign letting me know that I was doing exactly what I was supposed to be doing because, all that background noise, it ceased, and all of the other things about do this and do that and all of that just disappeared. And it let me know that I was in the path of what is designed for my life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was in it then, brother.
You have performed with some of the great in the comedy industry now. Tell me a little bit more about that with some of the people that you have performed with.
So you say tell you some of the people, I could barely hear you.
Yeah, I mean, you sent me a plethora list of comedians, like for D.L. Hughley, for Bill Bellamy, so many people. I mean, you have performed with some of the A-list type comedians. So how has that experience been for you?
Oh man, it's been amazing. I'm extremely grateful for these vets in the game for extending their platform to me and allowing me, to work with them, uh, learn from them. You know what I'm saying? They're giving me gems, giving me insight to the game, and allowing me to just be in their world, so to speak.
Okay.
And what it has done for me has caused me to be even the more grateful and humble. You know, because I don't take it for granted at all. Working with some of the people that you named, man. And it's so weird because if I had started comedy 26 years ago, when my wife was telling me to get involved with comedy and to get going, when I look at it, some of these cats that I'm running with now and sharing some of their platforms with now, they would have, it's like I would have been in that class.
Gotcha.
And it's like where I am now when I got going, and to look up and see that I'm still rubbing elbows, or not still rubbing elbows, but get a chance to rub elbows and share the stages of some of the people that I grew up watching. It's almost like this thing where, I don't know, your journey would just make up for lost time and put you exactly among the people that you were always supposed to be with. You know what I mean? Because when I started off in comedy, the first group of people for us comedians to like embrace me and take me under their wings, they were all the OGs. All the people that we grew up watching on Comic View and Def Jam. You know what I'm saying? Like, they showed me love, truthfully speaking, before some comedians that was on my level and in my little, sphere of comedy. It was the OGs that showed me love first. So it's been great to be able to work with them, man. And one of the things they said, which is a common statement that I've heard from most of them in reference to myself, it was like my work ethic is what caused them to open their door and share their space with me. They say they've seen the way that I've hustled, the way that I hustle, and the way that I work, and the way that I just embrace comedy. And they said it reminds them of how they embrace comedy. So that was the thing that opened the door for me long before they saw my set on stage. They liked the way I grind and hustle.
That was my next question. I wonder, how did they come into your life as far as cultivating your skills to make you even a better comedian, which you just answered so awesome. Yeah.
And I'm gonna tell you, one of the things that I pick up from them, man, the people that you named on that list, I don't care if I share this with other comedians as well. It's like, pay attention to what these veteran comics are asking and talking about in the green room. Anytime you're around a vet, before you leave their place, they're going to ask you something. They're going to ask you, what's next? Where you at next? What you got coming up next?
Okay.
And for me, and what I would like to share to other comedians that's out there, pay attention to that, because that's one of the things I learned. They're not concerned about the gig you're on now, you know what I'm saying, or what you did last week, what you got coming up next. And what that did for me was, it just kind of gave me a hidden message that, always grind, always keep working, because it's not about what you're doing now. You know what I'm saying? You got to stay working. You know, it doesn't matter how big your gig was last month, what you got coming up next. You know what I'm saying? We're not caught up on that. We don't park next to a success. We don't park next to a failure, but we always keep it moving. And one of my OGs in the game always tell me that he uses this phrase all the time. He says, we leave work to go to work, you know,
Wow.
as a comic, you know what I mean? And so these are some of the gems that I've learned from being a fly on the wall, you know, in the presence of some of these people that you've named, you know. And I would just like to share that.
That's great information for comedians that are coming up and need to hear what you just said. I mean, that's so valuable.
Yeah, you got to grind, man. Because even if somebody open the door and put you on, guess what you have to do after that? You got to work. Let's say you have a Netflix special tomorrow. After that special, guess what you got to do?
Work.
You got to work. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of times people have this thing in their mind like, oh man, if I could just get this one show. And it's like, no, you know, and one of the OGs told me, man, he was like, it's not even about who's the funniest in this game.
Mm-hmm.
He said it's about who is the most consistent.
Yeah.
You know, so consistency is key. And that's one of the things that I really, you know, try to embrace and keep in the forefront, you know, of my mind, man. Just be consistent. Just keep going. Keep working.
Cool. Hey, hold tight. We're going to take a short break and we're going to come back. I want to talk about you being the most requested cruise comedian because you stay on the ship somewhere. So hold tight. Be right back, man.
You're listening to Spit to the Beat podcast with your host, the one, the only Stacy B. Unstoppable Puryear.
Hey, this is Stacy, aka Beat Unstoppable Puryear with Spit to the Beat podcast. Would you like to be my guest if you're a singer, songwriter, musician, producer, or promoter? Give me a call at 901-341-6777 or email me at myguest@spittothebeat.com. And welcome back to Spit to the Beat podcast. I'm your host, Stacy B. Unstoppable Puryear, and I'm joined in the virtual studio with my very special guest from Duval, Jacksonville. My guest, comedian A-Train. Man, we left off to what you was talking about, working hard in the business. You know, they veterans or vets will tell you what you're doing next, what you have next, and you share some valuable information for those upcoming comedians to not just stop at one show, continue to work hard, continue to look for your next gig, and so forth and so on. So with that being said, you being one of the most requested comedian for cruise ship, and I believe that from because I looked at your schedule that your wife presented. You're on a cruise like what 3 times out of a month, and you're gone what longer than weeks on these cruises. So how has that been performing for cruise ships? Maybe the same guest or whatever versus being on the stage at a comedy club.
Well, first of all, you know, I'm gonna keep it in harmony with the same philosophy that Spit to the Beat pride themselves on, which is it ain't cap if it's true.
Right.
You know we spit to the beat over here. You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
we stay in cadence. You know what I mean? So, so just in harmony with that mindset, man. You know, these cruise ships. You know, first of all, let me just say that it's not just the cruise ships, but it's the caliber of ships as well. And a lot of times people don't understand that. They think that all cruise ships are linear. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And they're really not. There's levels to it. They're different
but
bags.
You learned that on your way, you know, going into the cruise ship, right? Like you started at this certain cruise company and then you moved to better and better, right?
Yeah, when I started, I had the philosophy of, I had the understanding of, you know, if you're on a cruise ship, it is what it is. And once I started on the cruise ships, I discovered that, all cruise ships aren't on the same level. You know, just because you're working on this ship, well, there's another cruise line and a caliber of ship where it's a little bit more top chef, you know? And so once I discovered, you know, and saw the rhythm of that, you know what I mean? I just got on there and I started, doing my thing. And I'm grateful enough to know to have people around me and to have folks in my corner that recognize the difference between my shows, and some of the other shows that they've seen, on that ship. This coming from directors, you know what I mean? This coming from, cruise directors, entertainment directors, some of the folks who are responsible for staffing, you know what I mean, and booking on the cruises. And then, they look at your ratings, so my ratings were like soaring and it was going through the roof. So with that, as a result, you know what I'm saying? They was like, okay, this guy out here shining. And I was able to do some of the top tier ships in a shorter period of time than most comedians who probably been out there, for years. So with that, I remember one time, man, we got
one
an
of these
email.
memorable moments.
Yeah, it's so many, man. So one time, just to kind of like bring you in on some inside stuff. One time, my wife, and myself, my wife is my manager as well. We got this email from one particular cruise line, and they were like, "Hey, we've never received this many guest cards, complimenting a comedian ever. And we don't even know what to do with them." They say the passengers, man, you know what I'm saying, just filling out comment cards saying, "Hey, we enjoyed A-Train. A-Train made our cruise, blah, blah, blah." And this was like just happening. So with that alone, man, they started realizing that, hey, these people coming on our ships, rocking with A-Train. And then you started having people book cruises just because I was going to be scheduled on that cruise. So with that, man, a lot of fanfare started kicking up and my name just started, kind of like traveling throughout that water out there. And, and the game was real, man. So, and I gotta, I want to give a shout out too, man. I had some real OGs out on that water to kind of like show me some ropes. You know what I mean? I want to give a shout out to my dude, CJ Jones, man. I want to give a shout out to Maceo. Give a shout out to Billy D. Washington. Some of these boys been out there like 20 years, man. You know what I'm saying? And, a lot of times people on land don't know about these boys out there rocking on that water because they're not in the social media limelight or they're not in the limelight of, whatever spotlight is given on comedians. But when I started doing ships and things, I entered a whole nother world that I didn't know existed, and I entered a world of comedians that I didn't know about either. And I did my thing, but I wanna show love to some of the cats out there that spit game to my ear. You know what I'm saying, and let me know how to move. You know what I mean, and I appreciate that because. By the same token, you had some comedians, you know what I'm saying? They weren't cool with it, they weren't cool with the fanfare. And just to keep in mind, as a comedian, we're not crew. You know what I'm saying? I'm on a contract. Like my contract as a guest entertainer, you know what I'm saying? I can my contract, it can be a week long. You know what I mean? So we're not like those people that you see work on the cruise ships for 6 months or 9 months straight, based on their visas. As a guest entertainer, my contract can be a week long. I go in, I do my shows and I'm out, So I move around. So I'm not just like stifled to one cruise line or one ship. I do multiple cruise lines. You know what I'm saying? Just like now, tomorrow I get on, a ship for Norwegian Cruise Line, for the Alaska run. But
I was getting ready to ask you your next venture. You going out to Alaska? Okay, go ahead. Tell us about it.
Yeah, and I want to give a shout out, man, to like I say, the cats who are out there and showed me love. And there's one brother, man. Last but certainly not least, Lewis Johnson, man.
Mm-hmm.
I hit him up first, and he's went on record saying, what he liked about me versus other comedians who have come across his path asking him questions. He was like, what I love about baby bruh, that's what he called me. He said, what I love about baby bruh, he said, Train hit me up with questions one day. And he said, then next thing I know, I look up and this dude is killing these cruise ships, you know? And he was like, he was impressed because he was like, oh, so he was asking like for real intent to do. I was like, yes, you know what I mean? And but Lewis Johnson was definitely one of the people, you know, that kind of spit some real game to me, man, and allowed me to see the route, you know, to take for this cruise ship stuff. So, you know, we rock.
Let me ask you this: does it ever get taxing?
It does, man. It's like anything else, you know what I'm saying? It has its pros and cons, you know. And a lot of times people are like, oh my God, you working on cruise ships, you all around the world, you on vacation every week. Yeah, we are, you know, but at the same time, you know, you can get bored a little bit because it's the same repetition every week. You know what I'm saying? You got 5,000 people getting on, you know, say on a Saturday. And the same things that they were excited about was the same things that the last 5,000 people were excited about. You tired of looking at that food on the buffet. You tired of looking at the menu. You know what day of the week it is based on what's on the buffet. You know, it's like, you know, you have little stuff, you know, and but at the same time, you can't complain because, you know, I've seen work before and this ain't it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
I can imagine, man. You not only you, but your wife got to like, okay, here we go again, but let's go get it though.
Yeah. And baby, man, and believe it or not, she rides with me, she cruises with me. But then some people may not believe this. There's some time when she's like, I'm going home. She had been on the road with me, I would say about a year and a half straight. Now, when I'm on land, if you see me, you're going to see her. But she has her own things going on too. You know what I'm saying? But if it's a land gig, she's going to be there. Most of my cruise ship gigs, you know, she'd be like, you know, I got something I need to do. I can't be gone for that week and, you know, little things like that. But over the last year and a half, she made a commitment, you know, she was going to be there with me on these cruises. And man, we were running, brother. I'm talking about we were running back to back, ship to ship, cruise line to cruise line. She right there with me. You know, we spent all of August in Alaska. And then the next month for September, I was supposed to do Hawaii and Tahiti. Man, when I got off that ship for Alaska, supposed to fly from LA to Honolulu to get on the ship, my wife was like, I'm going home. I was like, you're not going to go to Hawaii with me? She's like, I'm going home.
It ain't even about Hawaii. I'm just going home.
Yeah, sometimes you just miss your couch. You just miss your bed. You know what I mean? And but I shared that just to let people know, man, like, you know, we have our moments where it's like, man, I'm going home. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
So definitely, with that being said, look, I'm going to take another little short break. I'm going to come back. I want to talk about you being on the stage versus the cruise ship. I'm going to come right back and get that kicking, okay?
That's what's up.
All right, cool. Hey, this is Stacey, aka Beat Unstoppable Per Year with Spit to the Beat podcast. Would you like to be my guest if you're a singer, songwriter, musician, producer, or promoter? Give me a call at 901-341-6777 or email me at myguest@spittothebeat.com.
Thank you for listening to Spit to the Beat podcast. Want to know how you can help? Be a sponsor by going to our website at www.spittothebeatpodcast.com and click the support tab. You can also join us each and every week live at YouTube at Spit to the Beat. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and follow. Thank you for your support.
And we're back to Spit to the Beat podcast. I'm your host, Stacy B. Unstoppable Prayer. And again, joining me all the way from Atlanta, Georgia, but reside in Jacksonville, Duval, Jacksonville, Florida, baby. My guy, comedian A-Train. Again, man, thank you for being on the show and all the information that you are sharing about your life, your career. Let's jump in a little bit. I know we talked about the cruise ship. We talked about the guys, the vets that poured into your life, into your career and everything. How is the stage different from where the culture or the people from the cruise ship being on the stage where you started from?
Oh, brother, I tell people all the time that, the muscle that's needed to perform as a comedian on cruise ships, that's a different muscle than you would typically use when you're performing on land or in local comedy clubs. Because when you're in, it's actually the target of material is a little bit clear and when you're performing at a local club, because you understand who's in the audience. You know what I'm saying? It's usually, a targeted group of people. But when you're on a cruise ship, you're literally standing before 1,000 people who is a mixture of all type of, ethnicities, all different backgrounds, different cultures. They from different parts of the world, different age groups, you know what I'm saying? Different genres. And you as a comedian, your material has to be on a level now to where all of these different people can relate to some part of what you're putting out, where you can bring them in and cause them to have some level of enjoyment and laughter. And a lot of times on land, it's easy. You can talk about this, you know what I'm saying? You can talk about that, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, damn, you hitting them right in the forehead. You hitting them, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's a low target of conversation, you know what I mean? But when you out on that water, some of the things that I talk about on land, it might only reach, a small few in the crowd, because the majority of the people, they don't know what you're talking about. They're not from your world and what's popular among, your local city or whatever. And and then especially if you do like some of the ships and the cruise lines that I work, you know what I'm saying, where, the demographics are, mostly white, and then different age groups. You got people who different parts of the world, you know what I mean? Like, what we laugh about in the streets of Duval. They, you know what I'm saying? That's gonna be.
They ain't gonna get it on the cruise ship.
Right, they don't get it, man. And so I always say that working that muscle, the muscle that's worked on when you're performing on a cruise ship, it literally prepares you for performing for the world. You know what I mean? Because you're able to find a common denominator among all these different groups, and have them attached to it. And sometimes it's not just the material itself that I have to adjust. Sometimes I have the same material, but I'll adjust the delivery on it.
Yeah. That's why I wanted to ask you, do you make that adjustment?
Yeah. But at the end of the day, you're going to have to make an adjustment because, man, I'm literally like all over the world. You know what I'm saying? You're doing transatlantic runs. You know what I'm saying? You're over in Spain. You're in Portugal. And although you have some Americans on there, you still have people from that region that will board the ship as well. So, you know what I'm saying? You have to really find the real funny in your bit and allow it to be universal. And if not, you got to adjust it. You know what I'm saying? So.
Yeah. Did you ever ran across the language barrier with any audience on the ship and stuff?
Yeah, especially the cruise lines that I work and some of the vessels that I work on. There's a language barrier, not just because of me, but there's a language barrier simply because there's a language barrier, and you have some people, the language barrier is so real that they can't even come to none of the form of entertainments that's on the ship because, you know, they just don't get it. And you have some people that will come to the show and they'll be like, hey, I'm from Australia, and I was picking up a little bit, you know, but everything, most of everything you said, I got, and I find it funny. So you have that, you know what I mean? A lot of times,
some of the challenges that you faces.
huh?
So these are some of the challenges that you face.
Yes, and then most of the times when people have that language barrier, the key to it is to slow down.
Okay.
You know, because, you know, as Americans, we don't really think about it, but we speak, especially I know I do. I speak fast. And you'll have some people with that language barrier that's trying to pick up what you're saying. They'll ask you, hey, you know, can you slow it down some? So I slow it down. I change my pace, you know what I'm saying? Change my tone just so that they can get what I'm putting out, man. Yeah.
Cool. Hey, man, again, I want to thank you for finally getting you on the show, coming on my podcast and sharing your information.
Thank you for having me, man.
Yeah. Your life and your career and everything like that. Hey, hold tight as I close out the show, and we're going to come right back. Okay, cool. Thank you for watching Spit to the Beat podcast. Join us again for another live episode next week.